All right, welcome to Life Fit with DVD. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. Today, I wanted to talk about the gift and the curse of reciprocity, and what that is, what that means, and just what had happened recently today, which left me a little bit confused. So, the gift of reciprocity, right? And the curse of it. I had a situation that I had asked a neighbor recently about taking down a tree that was on the border of our properties, and I wanted to take down the tree for a variety of reasons, mostly because there's a lot of bugs on it, a pest that wanted to get rid of, and they're right next to my garden, so they're attracting other pests, and I just didn't want this type of tree, because it attracts that pest, to be there. On top of that, it was leaning towards our neighbor's property, and there's a bunch of kind of bushes and stuff in the way, and the easiest way to take it down would be to cut the tree to fall on the neighbor's yard, to minimize the most damage to our kind of barrier between our properties. But when I asked her about this, if I was okay to kind of fell the tree that direction, she didn't want me to cut it onto her yard. And, I understand that. She said that her drain field was there. I get it. You don't want people to, cut stuff onto your yard, and, any problems that can cause. However, we would have cleaned it up right away. And, unfortunately, she wants me to go the more expensive route, which is having a professional like rig it so it falls onto my property. And I get it. It was a little bit frustrating because that forces me into the more expensive option of the quote I got from the tree people. However, an interesting thing happened today where a tree on her property fell onto my property, and it didn't damage anything. It didn't do anything harmful, but it did take out some of like the bushes and other stuff that was in the barrier area. And I thought, because she said she wanted to be neighborly, right? And I had said to her, I'm like, yeah, I believe it's on your property, and she came out and she took a look at it, and it was like, oh wow, this is big, whatever. And I offered, and maybe I shouldn't have done this, but I offered. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I can cut it up and get rid of it, but it would be nice if I would, I could, cut something else, like, onto your property, right? And have that opportunity to save myself some money by her being reciprocal in sharing the this task of cutting up the wood, right? And I had asked her in the first place if I could cut the tree onto her property. This just fell onto my property unprompted, and then I even offered on top of that to cut it up for her. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. And then before I could even finish my statement of saying, yeah, well, I mean, would it be possible to, if you could rethink, like, reconsider me cutting it onto the other tree, onto her property? And she walked away. She walked away before I could even finish the statement. And it was kind of how I thought that situation was going to go with her. But in the end, and it's fine. It's a little, it's obviously disappointing, right? And ultimately I offered to cut it up because I just don't want other people kind of coming onto the property when I'm not around or whatever. Um, so like I don't mind doing the work, but for her to make a concession at least to accommodate the other project that I'm trying to do, um, that would prevent the same situation potentially, of a tree on my property falling onto hers. It would prevent it in the first place, and she just. I'm not sure if she's experiencing, that sort of reciprocal situation that could occur, or if she is experiencing it, and she it makes her uncomfortable and is ignoring it. But because I easily could just be like, well, you got to cut this up, right? Like, I'm not doing this. This is your tree fell into my property. But I also want to be neighborly. That was the words that she had said herself. And this ultimately just is a long preface into this whole, the gift and the curse of reciprocity, or I mean, I guess it's reciprocity. I guess that's how you say it. But it's about being reciprocal and alternating in how you work with other people, how you transact, how you get along with other people. So I mean, what is this gift of reciprocity? It's strengthening your social relationship with other people and providing a sense of partnership and camaraderie and community that you can get along with somebody else. It encourages cooperation and collaboration, efficient problem solving, working together. It promotes fairness and equity in your relationships with others, and it enhances trust and social cohesion. So, when we think about the gift of reciprocity, this is about bringing people together and working together to solve our problems, and an optimal way. And who wouldn't want that, right? Who wouldn't want that? Um, Obviously, there are certain people that don't want that or just don't see that. But the problem is when one person sees, this whole opportunity for reciprocity and exchanging of favors, right? This can also be the gift, or sorry, the curse of reciprocity, where here I am, and you know, I feel a little bit frustrated because she had an opportunity to, be fair in a situation, and hasn't, right? So the curse is, this can create feelings of like obligation and indebtedness to other people, right? You feel indebted to owe a favor, and like that can really be hard for some people when you feel like you owe somebody something, like they don't want to be in debt. Which this can lead to stress, right, or resentment. This can also turn into exploitation of, taking advantage of somebody else's generosity. And it can result in the expectation of, like, an equal return, right? Which can potentially strain relationships. And ultimately this might create ultimately some sort of dependence on other people, where you're reliant on them for favors, or just certain things in your life, that once they're removed, right, you might experience some resentment towards that. But so it's just important to be aware of these things. I think at the end of the day, in talking about this, my point is that it's important to be aware of how you interact in your relationships. If you want to be neighborly with a person, and you think they're going to reciprocate, right? You want to articulate that, and be clear about that. And I think in my situation, I probably should have been a little bit more clear about, well, hey, can you reconsider, and state that up front before offering, to do the work that should have been hers. Um, on top of that, you know, with my own kind of frustration, and it's not even frustration. It's just it went the conversation with her went almost exactly how I expected it to go, because I really don't have a whole lot of expectations for building camaraderie and collaboration with her and you know them based on other things that have happened, outside of this story. I'd rather not have a relationship, right? That's a choice as well. But sometimes you don't have a choice. Like sometimes a tree just falls on your yard. There's something that needs to be done about it. So ultimately, even though my expectations were low, and I offered to be neighborly, I'm a tiny bit, upset that she didn't kind of see it and see an opportunity to return the favor. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not going to bother me tremendously. It's something that I think everybody should be aware of, because there's an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity to have a win-win, to get a transaction that's fair to the relationship, which will ultimately bring people together and not divide them. And when people don't see that, reciprocity, that they don't see that opportunity, that just can be hard for people. So I just thought I'd share this today because it's a pertinent situation that had just happened to me, and I think there's just like a lot for people to learn. And ultimately, this goes back to the video I made yesterday about just where's your awareness? Are you being aware of how your decisions are affecting other people? Maybe you don't think they do, but they actually they do, right? Maybe how are these decisions affecting yourself? Are you feeling guilty because you didn't return a favor somewhere? Ultimately, this is, it needs to be communicated though, right? If you're expecting something of somebody, I think you should be, verbal and communicative about, if that's a word. You should express that to them, and say, hey, why, would you be able to, right, reconsider the whole tree situation, and then just see what she says, right? And it's like the whole thing where you are asking for a raise from a boss, right? But you need to go in with the evidence. You need to go in to that situation where you're going to talk to your boss, ask for a raise, and be able to provide them examples of, yeah, this is why I would be asking for this, right? And would you be in good faith be able to see that, appreciate that, and reconsider what you're valuing me at, valuing our relationship at. And ultimately, it just leads to better relationships. But it takes communication, and I think ultimately it's important to just be aware of this thought process, this collective thought process, and how you interact in your relationships, and how you interact with other people, because this can apply to almost everything. I mean, even with your relationships with your best friends and your spouse, returning the favor and being fair about a situation, and not always trying to just take advantage of other people and one up them, or just get away with as much as you can, it's not always a great way to go about life. It might feel satisfying and rewarding in the short term, but ultimately it's going to cultivate bad faith. And I think that there's something on a soul level there, that a spiritual level, that ultimately will either provide for you or come back to bite you in the end. Um, but ultimately, keeping the expectations low and just being aware of these things is the most important. So I hope this helps. Let me know if you are, if you think about your relationships in a similar way. If you find, reciprocating favors, things, transactions is a beneficial thing, or if you feel like you overgive and becomes a curse. It'd be interesting to hear. So let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for being here today. So I will talk to you later. Bye.